So we're going to be in here. He's going to give you a presentation. We're going to split up and do some breakout groups.
Great, thank you, Gwen. Okay, welcome you guys. I know it's kind of late in your day, but we're going to try to find some energy and have a little bit of fun with this session. I got my first manager's job when I was 27, so maybe a similar age to some of you in this room. I was with IBM Corporation, a company I joined right out of college. And I'd been with the company 3 years, almost 4 years. And they said, hey, you want to manage people? You're good at your day job, you know, being an individual contributor. We think you'd be good at managing people. I didn't have a clue what it was like to manage people. I happened to work for a company that took people management very seriously. And before they put you on the line managing people, they sent you to school. Now, school was a 1-week class, but I had some training before I hit the floor and started to manage people. Another thing that gave me an advantage as a new manager is IBM had a policy that you could not go into management unless you left the location where you worked. You couldn't manage people that, say, were your peers. They took you out of your environment that you were accustomed to, where your friends were, and they stuck you in another location as a manager. So you came in not knowing the people and not having to get over the hurdle of maybe managing people that you're pals with. So I want to start today with a few questions, which will help me gauge the makeup of this room. So is there anyone in here who actually doesn't manage people yet? Okay, all right. How about people in the room that have managed people less than a year? Okay. 1 to 3 years. Okay. Anybody more than that? Probably not. Okay. All right. Good. That gives me a good sense of what we've got in the room. How about those in the room that have received management training of any kind? That's amazing. So you're managing people, and only 2 of you have had the training. Interesting. Okay. That's good. In terms of the training that you've had, there's 2 of you, in-house, outside training, which was it?
In-house.
In-house.
Company has.
In-house. Okay, that's quite common. Okay, good. All right. So today we're going to have a classroom session, and then we're going to do breakouts. We'll try to get through this in about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. And then that'll give us like an hour for breakouts. You each got a number when you came in. We had quite a few more people who registered, so they're not in the room. So we might have to rejigger the numbers a little bit. Someone might have a group of 1 based on the numbers of people in the room. So we'll try to get it so that you're at least groups of 3 or 4, and we'll break out, and we'll show you where at the end of the session where the breakouts will be. Okay. Some ground rules. This is interactive, right? So, you know, if you are managing people and you're dealing with a situation, or you have a question about a concept we're talking about, ask, right? This can be an open forum. Is anybody in here with a subordinate that you're managing, just by chance? Okay, good. That's a little dangerous, right? Confidentiality, right? If you do know each other, and you might have a question regarding an employee that that person might know. What we talk about in this room stays in this room, okay? And we don't use names. We just say you have an individual and this is your situation, what would you do, okay? So you're going to share knowledge. You may have experiences, have tried something that I'm not mentioning. Feel free to bring it up. There's no way that I'm going to be talking about every possible example in the topics that we're going to talk about. So if you have something to add, let's hear it. Share it with the group, because we all can learn from that, right? Look, I've been managing people for a long time. I still learn things about people every day. It's not an exact science, right? Challenge and contribute. As I said, confidentiality. No mobile phones. No, I see no one brought their laptops, which is great. Let's just focus for the next hour and a half on what's happening in the room, and let's have some fun. The learning objectives here. So we want to make sure that you're able to do some things with building rapport with your employees. Understand why it's important, and why it's really critical to the success of your management role, right? Understand the importance of knowing that everyone's different. You know, you can't treat everyone the same, right? Because everybody's different. But you do need to treat everybody fairly. So two different things, right? Not everybody's the same, so you can't treat everyone the same, but they have to be treated fairly. We want you to understand the importance of knowing that because everyone's different, there's a different approach you need to take. Understand the importance of neuro-linguistic programming. Has anybody heard that term before? Good, okay. Meta programs are the keys to understanding how people take in information and draw conclusions and their view of the world, right? So we're going to talk about 7 of those concepts. There are more, but we're going to focus on 7 of those. And it will help you to understand how to, maybe how to approach different types of people that you might have, that you encounter on your teams. We're going to help you build stronger bonds with your employees, right? How do you build that rapport? And then have more confidence in general about managing people, right? Managing, a lot of it is really about courage. And in this 5-session series that we're going to have over the next 5 weeks, actually 6 weeks because we're skipping the 4th of July, it's all about building your confidence level in dealing with people that you manage or people that you will manage in the future. Okay? Any questions on the objectives so far? All right. I'm gonna show various quotes and things that I have found that have struck a chord with me. Here's the first one. Bosses who ignore and stomp on their subordinates' humanity sometimes generate quick gains, but in the long run, such short-sightedness undermines creativity, efficiency, and commitment. Right? Anybody ever had a manager that was kind of cantankerous and managed with an iron fist versus with a gentle touch and understanding? They expected things of you, and you had to do your job, but they were tough on you. Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Studies show that managers with this style are good in certain situations as far as getting productivity from their people and retaining their people. But over the long haul, turnover will be higher with those types of managers, and productivity in the long run will be less. Okay? This was something I found on LinkedIn, right? Probably everybody in the room's on LinkedIn. I came across this posting. A boss versus a leader, right? So here's some comparisons, right? A boss drives employees, but a leader, they coach. They take a coaching approach. A boss depends on authority. A leader, goodwill, right? A boss might inspire fear and generates enthusiasm. This one, the next one, says I versus we, right? Story, quick story. There's a restaurant that my wife and I go to. And one of the waiters, when she comes to us all the time, she tells us the specials. And she goes, tonight I have, the soup of the day is this. I have, prime rib is the special entree. And I have, so one night she came up and she started her routine and said, I have. I'm like, okay, so you have prime rib. What does the waiter in the other section have for specials? Because I'm not really interested in those specials. Do they offer something different? She looked at me, she says, I don't understand. I said, well, you said I have, and I expect we have. What's that? So, it's one of my pet peeves. Maybe it's here.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Can you just take it off? Can you use the handheld for a while?
Yeah, I can. Maybe you're
Let
gonna
me
do
just
this.
switch it.
It's that. Can anybody hear me? Maybe I don't need the mic. It's good. Thank you. Will you be able to hear it on the recording?
No.
No?
So you should probably use the handheld.
I might break into stuff. There it goes. Okay, good. All right. So you get the gist, right? There are differences between being a boss and being a leader. And being a leader, studies show time and time again, leaders are far more effective than someone who just wants to be the boss, right? All right. So what's the concept of rapport? Rapport, right? Creating a sameness between two people, right? That's the concept. Finding things that are common between two people. It can involve many things. Body language. Can anybody give me an example of a body language situation, let's say in an interview? That might create a more comfortable rapport with the person you're interviewing with. Go ahead.
You're leaning forward, so you're engaged.
So you're listening. Shows them that you're interested in what they're saying. Good. Perfect. Anybody else? Mirroring. Right. So if they lean back and put their arm on the back of the chair, whole different tone for the people around them. Okay? So, as you manage people, think about that, right? At the end of the day, say goodnight. Don't just walk past and be done. They're thinking, are they coming back? Right? Have they left for the day? You know, you say goodnight, you know, they're going for the night, right? So, say hello, say goodbye. Always acknowledge a job well done, right? And be sincere. You know, no matter how little it is, right? So, when David set all this up today, I was like, this is great. You know, you smiled. You smiled just now, even. But those little things matter to people. Because they're doing work that matters to them. Show what they're doing matters to you too. Right? So, say thank you. Say it often. You can't say it too often. Right? Say thank you for the little things that people do. Set aside 30 minutes to talk to each person, not as a group, as an individual. Try to do it every week, but at a minimum, every 2 weeks. The best manager I ever had in my career set aside 1 hour every week for a one-on-one. And when it first started happening, you know, I was new, she was CEO, and she says, you know, this is our time, every week, it's the same time, you don't cancel, you're here. The only reason I cancel is if I'm on the road. If I'm here, we're having this meeting. So I knew. For a while, it was a pain in the ass, because I had to constantly be ready for that 1 hour session. I had to have things to talk about, and I knew she was going to have things she wanted updates on that maybe I hadn't thought of, or she was going to give me something new to focus on. But after a short period of time, knowing that's the expectation, it worked. And did we spend that hour always on business? No. We actually created a very good rapport because of the time we spent together. And she did it with each of her leaders. And it was every week. Even the remote people, it was on the phone. Or actually, what she liked to do is use online. So it was a computer screen through Microsoft. So it wasn't typically on the phone. She was face-to-face with them too, from around the world. Great way to build rapport. And I'm sure as a manager, you think, I don't have time for that. Well, I guarantee you, when you get into the groove of just that 30 minutes, the time and the efficiencies you save by clarity of messaging and the things that need to be done, the efficiency you gain from that will be far greater than the 30 minutes you're lost. Okay. Anybody have that with anybody that they've worked for, or do that with the people they work? Excellent. That's a lot of people. Is it 30 minutes? Is it more? For some of you? More. More. Every week? Excellent. Now, is that something that was recommended to you? Is that something that you...
So my boss sets aside 1 hour every
So
week,
you
so I
guys
decide
say-
here, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Longer, shorter?
The same way, my boss kind of sets my time to me, so
Okay. Do you know how your team reacts to it? Have you ever gotten, is it something they stress out over? Is it something they've kind of gotten in mindset of doing? Okay. What for you?
there's a few challenges there.
Okay.
There's some team members who are fine with it, there's others who really think it's a challenge.
Okay. So what do you do with the ones that find it more challenging? Do you handle those meetings differently sometimes?
I guess you have to come up with more conversations and projects to talk about as opposed to with them because they find it hard to come up
Right.
with things.
Those who embrace it come in prepared, right?
Yes.
Right. So those that aren't prepared, you have to drive a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, very common. Good, I'm glad to see so many actually do that. I have to say, I've only had 2 managers, maybe 3 managers in my career that did that on a consistent basis. But it was this one manager that she just, without fail, and it was just like that. That's how she managed the organization. Constructive feedback, timing. How many people have had managers that just wait till review time to give you that constructive feedback, to give you pointers on things you might do differently or better? Right? It's hard to react to those things. If it happened 6 months ago, how do you change the behaviors, or how do you take corrective actions on that if you're just finding out about it then? Right? To build rapport with people, a person will have a lot of respect for you if you have the courage, because that's what it comes down to. When you don't give somebody feedback about something, there's a lack of courage to confront it. You know, you don't want to cause discomfort, because it's sometimes difficult to talk about, right? So when people delay giving feedback, it has an impact on the rapport you have with that individual. And I can guarantee you that in many cases, the delay is because the manager has a discomfort with delivering constructive feedback. Right? Now, future session with performance management, we're going to spend some time on giving constructive feedback so that you have the courage to actually have those conversations quickly and correctly so that you correct that behavior. Right? Avoid using email as a primary communication tool. It's a great tool. Don't get me wrong. Notice the word primary communication. You're going to use email to communicate a lot of things. But managers who sit in their cubicle and manage through email do not build rapport with their people like they should. Okay? Take a person out for coffee, for lunch, once a month, quarterly. Even if you do it, 2 or 3 times a year, it's better than not doing it at all. Right? It doesn't have to be long, but when you do those, it's not about work. You have your regular sessions to do that. Do that. Find something out about them. Right? Find something. Talk about what they did on the weekend, what they're planning for summer vacation. Talk about family. Share about you, and let them share about themselves. That's a great way to build rapport. Okay? And what I used to do is I would take the team out every couple of months. We would just, okay, everybody take a break, we're going for ice cream. And we would just go down the street and get ice cream, take an hour and just go. And when somebody would whine, I don't have the time, no, we're going for ice cream. Everybody has to go. It's a requirement. Okay? Be empathetic. When someone's struggling with a personal issue, there's nothing worse than having a manager who just, lets it pass. Perfect example, something that I had an experience with. Had an employee. She was here from Germany. Her brother passed away in Germany. She told me, I can't go to the funeral. 1, I don't have the money. 2, I'm too busy. And I'm like, your brother died, and you're too busy, and you can't find the money for a plane ticket. Family couldn't. So I'm like, I couldn't believe that. I put myself in the shoes. I could not go to a funeral for my brother, no matter what, right? So I went to my boss and I said, I would like to get her a plane ticket to Germany and let's make it possible for her to go to the funeral. It cost us $500. Maybe it costs a little more these days, but it was a $500 plane ticket to get her to June. Let me tell you, talk about goodwill, talk about getting an employee's, look at you like, you're really going to do this? Like, she was in tears. Like, she couldn't believe it. Okay? It was so simple. If you're going to give somebody an award for, doing something good, can't you do something nice for as little as $500? That had more of an impact than any award you could have given them. Right? It's those little things, right? Show some empathy. Listen actively, right? When someone's talking to you, how many people have had a conversation with their manager and they don't stop off the keyboard? They're still looking at email, right? They're checking their phones. Never ever happened to anybody in here? Right? When an employee's talking to you, hands off the keyboard, sit back, listen, engage, have a conversation, respond, ask questions. It builds rapport. They see that there's mutual respect. Right? People, even subconsciously, remember these things. Okay? Use the term we instead of I. Again, my waiter example. Right? It's one of my pet peeves. Right? You gotta use the term we instead of I. It is true. There's no I in team. Right? To demonstrate thoughtfulness in words and actions. It's kind of back to the being empathetic. Acknowledge when you're wrong. Right? Anybody have a manager that doesn't acknowledge when they're actually wrong? Right? We're human, right? Don't be afraid to show the human side of yourself with your people. You're not perfect. We make mistakes. And people will respect that when you admit you're wrong. Okay? Do it publicly. Right? Team meetings. I misjudged. You guys were here until 11 o'clock last night. I'm sorry that we had to do that. I wish we didn't have to. Thank you for staying. All of those things make a difference for people when you acknowledge it. Put the team before self in your actions, not just in words. Anybody have managers who, continually are out the door before you?
Yes.
Enthusiastic yes on that one. So it's common?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the team talk about that?
No.
No?
You don't talk about that.
Amongst the team.
No? But you feel it?
Definitely.
Yeah. Interesting. Anybody else?
I think on the flip side, I have a manager that works really, really late all the time, and I feel the pressure to, like, if he's working, I should be working.
Yes.
So I feel like managers should at least be aware of, that, the flip side of that as well.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Right? So, you keep in mind that just because, you find it necessary to work late as a manager, think about the impact on your team. They might be feeling the pressure to stay later. It's an excellent point. Yes?
But then you can't win, really, because if you have to work late, then, no offense to your problem, I'm sorry, I was just expecting, if you work very late and then your employees feel the pressure, maybe if the manager said, you don't have to stay past 5:30 or whatever, unless it's really busy, because managers shouldn't be able to work late if they have to.
Yeah, there's maybe two ways to approach that. Acknowledge it, address it with the team or with individuals in your individual sessions to say, hey, look, I have an expectation that you do your job. You make good on your commitments. Okay? Just because I stay late, I don't expect it of you. As long as you're clear on your expectations and you acknowledge, you can take that pressure off your employees to a large degree. And if you say it with sincerity, right, and directness, and sometimes you may need to repeat it so that people aren't feeling uncomfortable. You know, there are people who, you know, the workaholic type, or for lack of a better term, have no other life. They live to work instead of work to live. You know, there are different types of people, and different jobs have different expectations, and people, you know, are busier just because of the job that they have, or they're less efficient. Maybe the problem is they're less efficient. I don't know, but there's a lot of variations in that. So, acknowledging, I think, is probably the best approach. Right? Is there something else? Somebody had raised a question? Raised a hand? Okay. Put the team before self, right? And then, last but not least, it's easier to spend more time with people that you have a better rapport with, that are more like you, that you relate better to, right? As we're going to talk about, there's all kinds of people, right? And we relate more to certain personality types. So you have to be a little bit aware of spending an inordinate amount of time with those people and not so much time with those that are very different from you or you're not as comfortable with for some reason. Look, you know, I've had people that work for me that I didn't really like that much in terms of, you know, being it wouldn't be a person that I would like to go out and spend a couple hours with over a beer. I wouldn't do that. You know, we didn't have a lot in common. They were more of a, and we're going to talk about this, right? They're going to be more of a glass is half empty kind of a person. That, you know, wouldn't be fun for me. You know, but there were other people on the team that I would love to do that with, right? So you have to be aware of that, because what it does is you're keeping a strong rapport with those that you're more like, but you may be hurting the rapport you might have with somebody that's not. Right? So it takes effort in those situations. So you have to make sure, flip that a little bit. Right? Spend a little bit more time with those individuals that you might not have a lot in common. You might end up finding that you have more things in common than you realize. Okay? Does all that make sense to folks? Any comment? Have I missed anything that maybe you think or you've tried or experienced in building a relationship or a stronger rapport with?
Well, I feel like a lot of workplaces are, like remote employees are much more common now. In my own team, we're scattered across 4 different offices, so that adds to the challenge of building
Yes.
rapport. So I was wondering if you had any specific feedback.
Yes. I've had some challenges in that in my career, and not just as an individual, but from an organizational standpoint. You know, like you have your main office, and then those satellite, they feel like they're forgotten sometimes, right? So you have to make extra effort to include them. You can't forget, right? Let's use some examples. Technology today can help with that. Instead of a phone call, use video conference. It's a great way to have your eye contact, body language, right? It's different than being on the phone with someone. So if your company has the technology, I'm sure they do, right? Use video conferencing as a way to bridge that gap, that difference. Time zones make it difficult, right? So what ends up happening, when I've had people in different time zones. We used to trade, you know, like one time it would be me having to do the late night, and it would be their office hours, and then the next time we'd flip it, and they would have to do the off hour, and it would be during my office. We take turns. So, you know, there's a give and take. Then you build a respect. Hey, you know, let's share the pain, right? So if they understand you're going to share that pain, it helps, right? Anybody else have suggestions on maybe that, how to handle that? Remote people? Communications, email, you know, to the group, right? You always have to keep in mind. Let's say, you know, it's a Friday and, you know, for some reason you're going to let the team go home early. Well, someone in a different time zone, someone in a remote office, maybe you didn't include them. You always have to remember, if you do something for the team near you, you have to remember to do a corresponding reward, something to acknowledge for the people that are remote. And it will be off schedule to what you've done to your locals, but you still have to do it because they'll hear about it. You know, maybe you're sending a note to the team, you're saying, hey, we're shutting off. They're going to see that. What about me? You know, I'm not here below, right? So, you know, you consciously have to think about what are those things that I can do for my remote people. What other things have you done?
That's what I'm still
Okay.
exploring, because my
Okay.
direct report is in a different office.
Okay, different time zone or just different
So,
office?
same East Coast, so we're trying to get in a visit every quarter.
Good.
So we can have some
Yeah.
person time. That
Yeah.
means that we do have 30 minutes on the calendar every week.
Good.
But we usually do a phone call, so I like the idea of doing
Try
a
the video.
Yeah.
Try the video. I mean, it's not really that much different than sitting in the same room. It
Yeah.
really
I
isn't.
mean, I don't love seeing the video of myself, but I can do it.
You can block yourself out, right? You don't have to see yourself in the corner. Just have them on the screen. You can do that, right? I think the video really makes it as close to the person as you're going to get. Right? Try it. I think it'll make a difference. Anything else? Ideas, thoughts? Okay. Okay. Anybody in here managing people that used to be with you? It's kind of tough. Was it easy to make that transition?
Sorry, this week.
Oh, this week?
Wow.
Really? Wow. Do you have people in your group that you're really close with? Like you've done things. What's that? Oh,
My
you're.
manager, my direct person, she used to report, we just hired her 2 months ago. She used to report to my manager, who got promoted, and now she's reporting to me. Along with someone else, so she reports to me. Sounds good.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And we sit next to each other in the office, and the other person she reports to is the cook.
Yeah, that's kind of tricky. All right, so. All right, so have you guys talked about it yet?
Not yet, it's like just becoming official, so.
Okay.
We will be.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, communication's key. I mean, I think it's really important that you guys get, you know, all the concerns out on the table, what makes you uncomfortable about the new arrangement, you know, maybe set some ground rules, right, on you know, how you're going to operate. It can be tricky. Look, you know, there's varying degrees of maturity out there, right? Just because we're managers doesn't mean we're like mature about things, right? We're adults, but we're not necessarily all at the same point in our maturity levels, right? So with some people it's more difficult than with others, right? they're going to hold you to things that hey, you're my friend, right? So you don't have to slide, or that kind of stuff can happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen in your situation. Depends on your personality. Do you sense that based on the personality types of the people that you are in this whole arrangement, there could be some of that?
I don't think that.
Okay.
But,
All right. So this is your first time managing too, or okay. Courage, my dear, courage. Yeah, and I really, I'm sincere about that. It takes guts to have some of the conversations you're going to have and have the fortitude to say, no, I'm going to take a stand on certain things because I want this to work, right? And you don't want to wind up on the failing side, and you certainly don't want somebody else to fail. I mean, so yeah, you're going to have to be direct and professional about it. Set the tone. In other words, if they see you handling it in a certain way, they're going to be like, well, I've got to fall in line here because she's got a point, right? Take the high road. Be the adult in this arrangement, and don't let them get you. It's going to be tricky. So one of the things you got to start to shift away from when you now make that shift to manager, you got to stop doing the lunches, going out after work all the time. If you do, like, go out with folks afterwards, have a drink, go, right? Make a showing, cut out. Cut out early. Don't stay as late as you used to. Don't have that third or fourth round. You have to keep a little bit of a distance. You don't want to necessarily cut it off completely. You want to have rapport. You want to have a relationship with these folks, but you got it back. You're connected on social media, right? You're used to commenting on their Instagram posts, posting pictures of you and this person and that group. You're going to back away from that now as a manager, right? These are things you gotta, it's a different role. It's your career. You're taking a step. You're taking a step that maybe somebody else never will. Maybe they're just a little bit behind you, right? They might learn from what they see you going through. But you have to back away from that relationship a little bit because it's different now. When someone works for you, it is different. Okay? So it's really, really important that you start to pull back from those things.
I see some of the points, but I'm having a hard time seeing, like, is it more just as a general guideline to know when to draw the line outside of work? Because what if you're just really good friends with that person outside of work? Then shouldn't you both be professionals and realize, like, this is my life outside of work and this is my life
Excellent
outside of work?
point. Excellent point. And yes, there are degrees of friendship, right? And when you're really good friends with somebody, how do you do that? How do you just say, I can't do that? That's difficult. There's a couple ways to handle that. It's going to depend on the person, depend on you, depend on another person, how you handle it. If you can remain friends and close, and still have that employee-manager relationship, okay. But sometimes there's that personality type where they can't handle that you now have authority over them. Is this person someone that might take advantage of the situation?
On my team?
Yeah.
No. I was just asking to ask.
Oh, okay. So, again, it's going to depend on the person. Are these hard and fast? No. There's some of these things, it depends on the person, right? There are some people who are mature enough to handle that. The manager I first had at IBM, when I first became a manager, he's the one who offered me my first manager's job, okay? quick story, the interview for this job. I left Boston, had to go down to Norwalk, Connecticut for the interview. Got to the office at 10 a.m. They said, "Do you want to interview for a manager's job?" There's one that opened up. I'm like, "Sure." When do I go? Go home, change. They want you down there today. I got down there at 6 o'clock, had the interview over dinner. I had never drank more beers over a dinner in my life. Okay? I had 5 or 6 beers. It was a great interview. And I got back in my car and I drove back to Boston that night. Got home at like midnight. I got the job, but we built rapport. Now, so I worked with this guy for 2 years after that. While I'm his subordinate, he had roommates. He lived in a big house. And he asked me, "There's a room opened up in our house. Do you want to move in?" And I'm like, "That's too close." No, I'll go home to my house. And, it's like, but see, he had no issue with it. I think I definitely had more of an issue with it than he did. So, but we were able to separate the two things. Today, we're great friends. I've worked for years. He just retired from IBM. I'm going to he's got triplets graduating high school next week. He'll be, he has a party, I'll be going. But so, you keep those relationships, but, so sometimes you can do that with people that manage you and have that friendship. I've never had that again after that. I've always kept, my managers were kept a little bit of distance, and I've kept distance from people that work for me, for the most part. That was unusual. But so again, it depends on the people. Okay, good question. Anything else? All right. Look, it comes down to, there are going to be people that find that adjustment really difficult, and you just got to deal with it head on. You can't let them off the hook. You can't let them hold you hostage, right? And now, since you're maybe backing away from some of those relationships, build new relationships with people at your level, other managers, people more senior to you. Build those working relationships with those folks, and make sure you have a life outside of work, right? A lot of times, a lot of us, work becomes our social life. Those are the people that we spend the most time with, outside of work too. Fine, that can be fine. But sometimes when you get into management situations, that can cause conflict. So build that network of friends outside of work so you do have that to fall back on as well. Okay? All right. What am I doing on time?
It's 6:30.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to get a little more complicated now. This is kind of middle ground. We're going to switch into what we call the sensory modalities, right? It's a way of us how we learn and how we interpret the world around us, right? And we typically, when you talk about sensory modalities, there's really 3 sensory modalities that we talk about. One is visual, one is auditory, one is kinesthetic, right? So visual, I'll give examples of me, right? So I learn best, and I take in the world around me. I'm a very visual person. I'm not very auditory, and so my secondary is probably kinesthetic, and my third is auditory. So I'll give you an example. I used to commute by car, like 2.5 hours a day. And when I got sick of listening to Howard Stern and AM radio and music, I switched to listening to books during my ride. So I put on a book and I found that I didn't absorb and enjoy that experience like reading a book or seeing the movie. Because I do better at taking in information and the experience of it through the visual and the feeling. Right? Listening didn't do it for me. Okay? So, I know, that's the way I live. Right? So when you think of a person that reports to you, think of people so that they get a better understanding of that person and how to relate to them. It may help you to figure out how do they best take in information. How do they learn? Right? So somebody that you discover is more auditory, you can explain a concept to them or explain verbally to them instructions, and they take it, they got it, and they go. Another person who's more visual, or they need to actually feel it and do it, you give them the spoken instructions, they walk away and they're like, I have no idea what they want me to do. I don't have a clue. So having a conversation with your direct report on getting a sense for how they learn will help you interact with them more effectively. Right? And it can be as simple as saying, look, there's three ways we learn. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. Because I want to know how to better relate to you. And tell them how it works for you. What are your primary ways? Anybody have a sense for what they are? You want to share? If you look at these, how do you learn? How you take in information? And why you think you are? Go ahead.
Learn by doing.
What's that?
Kinesthetic.
You learn by doing. Right? You want to feel it, you want to really wrap your head around it. Right? Do you have a secondary, you think? Because it's not all one, right?
Probably visual.
Visual. Studies show males are more typically visual, females more typically auditory. It's just what studies show. Doesn't mean that all females are one and all males are the other. Anybody else? Anybody else been asked about this from anybody trying to relate?
Well, I would say I'm probably more visual, but because my manager, she has been more remote from me,
Okay.
I had to learn adapt to be more auditory.
Okay. Yeah. See, you said keyword adapt, right? Because once you know that someone is more predisposed to one of these, you have to adjust your style.
Yeah, 'cause you can't just like whiteboard in the same room, you know?
That's right.
So,
Right. Right? So again, you take that term sameness, right? So when you deal with people, you can't treat everyone the same. Right? So you have to consider their personality types, the way they learn, the way they see the world, in order for you to relate and work with them most effectively. To be a good manager of people, you have to adjust based on the individual. And the best managers adjust in and out of different styles based on who they're dealing with. Okay? Makes sense? It's not easy. It's not an easy world dealing with people. It's not an exact science either, right? Okay, so matching. We talked about that, right? Matching body language, matching your voice. You deal with a 3-year-old, you're going to talk differently to the 3-year-old than you do with a 20-year-old, right? Matching body language, rhythm. You're in a room and in a meeting, and your rhythm is completely different than the rest of the room. you're not going to be communicating effectively. But sometimes there's a reason to do that. But you got to observe the patterns that people are showing you. And if you want to really find a way to relate better to them, match those patterns. It actually works. And it's subconscious, but it works. Any questions on matching? Anybody, is this the first time you've heard of matching? No? So okay. All right, so mismatches, right? So sometimes mismatching is actually useful, right? So if you're in a meeting with your team and tempers are flaring, there's discourse in the room, there's tension, well, you certainly don't want to match that. You don't, by matching it, you're just going to escalate. So there's a point where you got to say, no, we're not continuing this. And it may mean you just break the meeting and you send people out to think about it and come back with a different mindset later, tomorrow, next week. Right? So sometimes you have to mismatch. There are times when you don't want to match. Maybe, you're interviewing someone for a sales job. And you want to see how do they deal with an uncomfortable prospect or client. So you want to mismatch them. You don't necessarily want to keep the same rhythm that they have. You want to throw them off and see how they handle it. See how they react. Do they get flustered? Right? Can they hold their own with somebody who's not with them? Right? How do they react to it? Okay? So there's a purpose in mismatching at times, depending on what you're trying to get to in that exchange. Right? So you can use mismatching to your advantage. And people take notice when you do it. Okay? Questions on mismatching? All right. So there's rapport with people, and there's agreement, right? They're not the same thing. So you can have rapport with people, be really a good relationship with these folks. It doesn't mean you agree on everything. It's how you deal with the disagreement when there's disagreement. But you have different views. It's okay to have different views. It's the way of the world. There are a variety of views on any topic. And when you're in a room full of people, or you're with your team, there are going to be people with varying views around the room. Okay? So, there are two different things. Right? Okay, so now, we're going to move into more complex thoughts on how we deal with different personality types and how people take in the world. This is neuro-linguistic programming, or meta-programs. Now, we're going to talk about 7 of them. There are more than 7. Anybody know the name Tony Robbins? Right? A lot of people recognize the name. Tony Robbins has made millions talking about meta-programs. I'm going to use quotes of his. We're going to talk about 7 that I think will help you in creating change in your teams, creating change in individuals, and figuring out ways of working with people who see the world maybe a little bit differently than you do. Right? And again, what you have to keep in mind here is, yes, it's a way to understand yourself and others, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. people switch in and out of the different styles, depending on situations. Under a stressful situation, they may be one way. Under a more relaxed, non-stressful situation, they may be quite different. Okay? So we're going to talk about these things, but just know, when you think you might have somebody figured out, maybe you don't, because given a different situation, they may change on you. Okay? And it's being able to spot those changes and the way you might have to deal with them in certain circumstances. A good manager knows how to change it up. Okay? And understanding how you yourself, how your styles change under different stimuli. Okay? All right. So we're going to go into. Okay. So there are 7. The first one, towards or away. This one relates to, there are people who react more to going towards pleasure, and then there are other people who react more towards avoiding pain. There is a difference. And sometimes knowing how that person responds to those two things will give you a clue on how you might approach them with a task they need to do or a behavior you want them to change. Okay? So we're going to get into some examples of that. External or internal frame of reference has to do with the way people see their success or whether they've done a good job. So there are some people who, no matter what somebody else says, like, you know, you did a really good job presenting today. Well, some people would say that, would like that. Some people say, good, I'm so worried, you know, thank you. Now, somebody else, that's an external frame of reference. Someone that's more of an internal frame of reference, they really don't care whether you like what they did or not. They really don't. What they care is, how do they feel it went? And there are those people that, you know, they think it went horrible, right? And you're saying it went great because their frame of reference on what's good versus yours is completely different. It's internal. And you don't know what's on their mind, right? So that's the person who says, no, I didn't do a good job with that. That's that person with that internal frame of reference. Might be that person that said, people in the room thought they did horribly, and they're thinking, I did fantastic today, did I? Right? But they're completely wrong, but what matters to them is I felt good. You might not have thought it was good, but I felt it went well. Right? So there's a difference, right? And having a sense for where does that person you're dealing with fall in that frame of reference will help you deal with that as an individual. Sorting by self or sorting by others, right? So this one has to do with a self is the person that's, what's in it for me, right? I don't care about the team thing. I'm like, okay, what do I get out of this assignment? Is it good for me? It might be good for you because it gets you off the hook, but what do I get from this, right? There are those people that put themselves first. Sorting by others is the person that does it for the team, right? They care more about the, you know, any Star Trekkies in here? Because you know, Spock was a, what was his term? Oh man, I can't think of it now. No, it was, yeah,
Star Wars.
that's Star Wars. Star Trek. is the
Needs of the many.
needs of the many outweigh
Needs of the
the needs of the one of the few. There you go. Thank you. That's right. So that's the difference, right? So what motivates people? Knowing that kind of person that will help you in dealing with that individual. Matcher or mismatcher, we talked a little bit about that, right? The matcher is a person that sees the good in anything. They'll find common ground. You can usually, talk with this person about a difficult subject and they'll be like, it's okay. It's all right. We'll figure it out. They agree. They find a positive in almost anything. The mismatcher is the guy that finds something wrong with everything, right? It's the glass is half full versus the glass is half empty kind of person, right? So knowing what kind of person you've got on your hands, we'll talk about some ways to approach that. Convincer strategy. This is the person that you always have to convince them, right? It's not just, hey, we're going to do this. Well, why? Convince me that this is the right thing to do in this situation. Because I got a few other ideas, right? So it takes convincing. And sometimes it's a matter of, for some, it's not just one time, you've got to repeat. Kind of like the way of advertising, right? How many times you got to show a message to somebody before they absorb it, right? Sometimes you got to hit the person over the head, 5, 6, 20 times before they get it, right? So the convincer can be a real challenge, right? Just as a mismatch. Possibility versus necessity. The ability person is the person that, when they go buy a house, they're going to get an apartment, they want the doorman, they want the internet, the high speed, they want the kitchen with the granite countertops and the Viking stove, and that they want it to the nines, right? The necessity person is like, I got a roof over my head, I got a bed over there, I got the table where I eat, and I got a black and white little TV over there. I'm set. I'm good. The minimalist, right? They don't care about that stuff. They just give me what I need. Give me the necessities. I'm good, right? The independent, cooperative, and proximity working styles. These are the people that an independent is just that. They work better independently, not necessarily work well as part of a team. So you may have somebody in your team like that, right? The cooperative one is the one that does work well as a part of a team. They actually prefer that. They would prefer not to work independently. And the proximity working style is someone who easily switches back and forth. They can be work on their own independently and then work as a member of the team as well. And they switch in and out quite simply. Any questions on these? Okay? We're going to go into a little bit of detail. All right, so here's some quick quotes on these to help you kind of understand these a little bit more beyond some of my examples. So the toward or wet, we're going to go in the same order. This is Tony Robbins. All human behavior revolves around the urge to gain pleasure or avoid pain. You pull away from a lighted match in order to avoid pain of burning your hand. You sit and watch a beautiful sunset because you get pleasure from the glorious celestial show as the day glides into it, right? So, if you understand whether your direct report responds better to, something that's going to give them pleasure at the end of the day or the end of the project, do that. But if you have somebody that, responds better to pain, less people are like that. The extreme of that is a masochist. right? And that's not a good thing. Okay? So, understanding this type of person, we're going to talk a little bit about in some of the exercises we're going to do in the breakouts. You're going to practice approaching the person like this. Any questions on that one?
What would be a good motivator for somebody, like, if this happens, we won't miss our goal? Like, I don't understand
Yes. Yeah, that would be someone who is motivated by pain. Okay. In terms of, let's give you another one. So someone who's motivated by like pain.
Wait,
It's
isn't it?
like explain what the repercussions are if you don't get this done. Okay, you're going to be here till o'clock. And you don't want that, right? So they respond more to the pain, right? Versus, telling them a rosy stuff. Has no impact on them if you give the bright stuff. You gotta show there's going to be pain if this doesn't happen. Okay, make sense? Any other questions on that? All right. External versus internal, right? So ask someone else how he knows when he's done a good job. For some people, the proof comes from the outside. The boss pats you on the back and says your work was great, you get a raise. Great. You win a big reward. Your work is noticed and applauded by your peers. When you get that sort of external approval, you know the work is good. Right? So that's an external frame of reference. For others, the proof comes from inside. They just know inside when they've done well. Right? So, anybody have someone on their team that you give them compliments, you tell them the job well done, and they don't really agree? You have people like that on your team, anyone? How do you handle that? Like, how do you get across to them, like, don't be hard on yourself?
It's not necessarily that they're hard on themselves, they just are really modest, I feel like, they're just like,
Okay.
they're like, okay, I think this is great,
Good.
and they're like, sure, thanks, and so you're kind of trying to like gauge or get a reaction out of them, but you don't necessarily get
So
much.
modesty does play a part in that, doesn't it? Right? Okay. Anybody else?
I mean, we have someone on our team who's from transfer industries.
Yep.
And so they hold themselves to a much more stringent standard of accuracy, let's say, than, our team can be like,
There's gray.
is gray.
Okay.
And so so sometimes when, or they came from an industry where like if you messed up, it was like the worst thing ever. Well, like on our team, if you like messed up a number, and you just send a follow-up email saying, hey, here's a correction. And so I'm personally trying to figure out how to give this person feedback. Like, listen, it's okay.
So he's devastated.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you tried?
I mean, I've just tried to tell him that it's fine. Like, and listen, we're coming from another industry, so media standards are different. Your work is not supposed to be at 1% perfect at the time. And so,
She come from analytics or something?
yeah, she came from that.
The numbers have the proof. Yeah, I can see that. That's a little different. Okay. How long has she been working? Okay, so it's still kind of fresh.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see her? Do you see a change?
Yeah, she seems to be listening up a little. It's just, I want to be thanks.
Okay, good. All right. No, I just like to understand kind of what the situation. Any others? Yes.
I think this is more for me personally, but sometimes I'll get positive feedback and I'll know that I did something well, but there's other things that I could have done better. So I'm seeing it more long term versus somebody else might be
Good.
seeing it short term.
Yep.
So then that's when I think I find myself not aligning with what somebody says. And it's not that I'm like not taking a compliment, like compliments. But I think that's when I'm always thinking ahead, like, this is where I want to go. Like, this was great, but I still have to do this.
Yeah. Not a bad thing to actually have the long-term view. But my only recommendation is like, take the little wins along the way. Right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
try and get better.
Yeah. Okay, good example. Okay. Anybody else? How are we doing on time?
It's 5 to 7.
All right. I'm not going to read all the quotes, guys. You can read a quote from Tony Robbins. So on the sorting by self and sorting by others, you know, in my experience, this is one of the tougher people to deal with. You know, the what's in it for me. Especially when you're counting on them as part of a team, it's a real challenge. And in my experience, I have found that these individuals, it's hard to get them to shift their view to working as part of a team and doing something for the greater good, right? I've never really quite figured it out with some folks. Anybody have people that they've had this struggle with on their team? Want to share that? Yeah?
It feels a bit like flattery, you know, it's like, if you do this, I'll introduce you to somebody, or we'll do this. I mean, it's, at least to me, when I dealt with somebody like that,
A little quid pro quo.
Bribery.
Did it work?
well, I had to modulate some of that pro quo stuff, but I think so, you know.
So you had to understand what that person would see as a reward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like,
What motivates that person? What can you use?
yeah, like when one team, it was like, you know, it wasn't actually money, you know, like a
Right.
monetary reward
It's not
or
always money.
recognition. It was
Yeah.
just like
Good.
feeding an ego almost.
Right.
You know?
Excellent. Okay. Good example. Any others? Oh.
Well, it's not an example, but I found that very few people are totally selfless either. I feel like most people at least want something for themselves, so you're more probably, I mean, that could be really simple, but you're probably more likely to get like a total egotist than totally selfless.
Yeah, that extreme is rare. There's one person in the news a lot lately that's more like that. But other than- Sorry, I don't want to get political. I'm going to miss that opportunity. Matcher and mismatcher. There's a quote from Tony Robbins. You know, again, you know, the mismatcher, that's the person that they question everything, right? It's hard to get them to agree on anything. And these are the people that kind of sap your energy, right? It takes a lot of effort to deal with a person like this. You know, the mismatcher is one of those real challenges. And you know, you can't give up. You gotta stand tough and go back at it whenever there's disagreement. And you gotta learn, you know, what are those little triggers to get them to back down, right? Everybody has their triggers. And once you figure it out, use it again and again, right? Use it. If it works for you once, try it the next time and see if it works. You know, there are little things you can do to maybe disarm someone. And what I've used is you point out the impact that kind of attitude has on their reputation. And to be more specific, how people view them. Right? You know, when you do that, the people in the room, it's palatable. You don't even see it. But when you take that hard stance and you start to disagree with everyone in the room, it has an impact on your peers. And I find that using that approach with certain people, it gets them to say, really? I had no idea, right? But it's hard for them to change, right? Some of those folks, I call them Eeyores, right? Anybody, Winnie the Pooh fan? The Eeyores, they're always, oh, woe is me, there's, oh boy, here we go again, right? So they're the Eeyores, and it's really hard to get them to change out of that mode. It's part of the DNA. So it's a continual effort to work on that person. Convincer strategy. Go ahead and read the Tony Robbins quote. This one, sometimes I don't find this type of person certainly not as difficult as the mismatcher, right? Because whenever you're presenting an idea, you should be prepared for the arguments, right? We've always learned that in school, right? Debates or presenting something in a project, you have to be able to address the questions. So, to convince someone, not always that difficult. Depends on how strong or fortitude this person might have in terms of holding the line and not wanting to change. But I generally find the convincer strategy is not that difficult as long as you're brushed up and prepared for your conversation. Those of you who come to the performance management session, we're going to talk a lot about that, right? So how do you, I said, it's about being prepared for the conversation, right? Know what the possible arguments are going to be and be ready with a response. Specific examples and reasons, right? That addresses the convincer. Okay? Number 6, possibility versus necessity. These folks are pretty easy. So with someone that's a minimalist, it's the struggle there is you have some people that they're just happy to have the job. They have no aspiration to be a manager or the SVP of a division. So they're happy. They like what they do. Pays the bills. They're the steady eddies, right? You have your A players, your B players, your C players. These are probably the B minus player. Steady eddies. Every company needs a steady eddy, right? You can't all be the A plus, A-type personalities to strive for the top. There's not enough room at the top. So every company needs a certain number of those people that, just you can count on all the time, right? That's kind of the minimalist. The possibility people, they can be pretty challenging for a manager because they're always looking for the next thing, right? They see themselves driving the Mercedes in 2 years. So how do you satisfy that desire for the finer things? They have a vision of the future. That person you're talking to across the desk, if they're in that possibility mindset, they're sitting there saying, I'm going to be your manager one day, probably by next year, right? So, they can be a challenge to handle. So those are the people that hopefully they're actually good at what they do. Right? They have the capability to get it. Some may not, and then it's a real problem because they see themselves very differently from, in terms of the quality of the work and their capabilities than you might. So when we talk about the performance management stuff, we'll talk a little bit about how you handle those conversations. But these are the folks that you're gonna sometimes have a little bit of a challenge with in terms of getting them to be realistic on what the true possibilities are. Right? Anybody gone through a succession planning process at work? You know what the succession planning is? Right? So it's a process whereby you kind of rank your people on the 9 box, which shows on the far left is low skill level, low future possibilities. On the other end of the box, the higher up end is like superstar, could be that future president of an organization, right? So you plot your people on this 9 box, right? So, and then you start building development plans with those folks depending on where they fall in the grid. This side of the grid, typically the bottom of the bottom, those, maybe they're in the wrong place. Maybe they're in the wrong job, so you might need to manage them out of the business or find them another role. People on the other end, you're going to make sure you're assigning them and giving them training and letting them really attain the greatness to which they're capable of. Right? And the people in the middle, those are the ones that you develop them, you find they're successful too. But you develop plans and you actually, true succession plan, you find positions for them in the future. Where are they going next? And you create a plan. So the management of the organization knows that when this person leaves this job, John, we're getting John ready for that role. So when Sheila gets promoted or Sheila, unfortunately resigns and takes another job, John, move. Right? And there's a plan to fill John. Sometimes the plan is, we don't have anybody for that role, so you go outside. That's succession planning. But that's where a lot of this, possibility person versus necessity person, you start identifying. Okay? So you see, this has ramifications throughout things we're going to learn in future sessions. Okay? Just building up a baseline for you. Independent, cooperative, proximity working styles. These are kind of fun, right? Getting to know people in terms of whether they like to work independently. I think today, by and large, the buzzword team player, right? Is there a job description out there that doesn't have the word be a team player? They all do, right? I think that's where you have your challenge in terms of whether you're an independent or cooperative. But there's a place for those independent folks as long as they're strong at what they do. And those who are versatile, the cooperative or the proximity style, those are your most versatile. Okay. Any questions on any of the 7? There's books out there on this topic that go into, other meta programs. It's a huge topic in terms of understanding people and relationships and getting things done through people. So, if this little snapshot piqued your interest, do some study on it. It is, if you really dig into this, any psychology majors in here? No, not too many. Did you talk about any of this stuff in psychology? No, huh? Okay. What school did you go to? No, I'm old. A lot more information out there about these. So, are we at 7?
7:10 almost. Just to also let you guys know, at the end of the series, we're going to send you these decks in August after all the sessions are complete.
Okay, so we're going to do just two quick examples here, just kind of to prepare us for the breakouts, okay? So in the breakouts, there are scenarios for you to choose from. I have some more complex type scenarios, and I have some easy things that you guys, if you're tired, or let's not work too hard this breakout, you can do the easier ones, right? So it's a choice. It's a choice you make. Once you go through the breakout sessions, we'll come back in here and do a quick recap, 5 to 10 minutes, okay? So the first thing here is, okay, so this is what would you do, right? So let's see if we can get just a little bit of someone to take a risk and talk through this openly in the room before you do the breakout. So you have an employee, you would like to attend a training class. She's been reluctant to attend training in the past, using excuses such as, I don't have time to do it, or she would rather learn the topic from self-study. You believe she needs this training to reach the next level in her career. Convince her. Thinking of the 7 meta programs. Anybody want to take a stab at it? Start it, and maybe we can go around the room and build on it. How would you approach her using one of these methods to convince her that she needs this class?
Well, you kind of need more information, but first you got to figure out what she's...
You can make assumptions.
Okay, so let's say she is motivated by going towards something.
Yep.
You could say, hey, I would like you to advance on this track, and I think you have the potential to be there, and this training would really help you out. So, you put the goal out there, and then you say, perhaps you can do this training on your own if that's their learning style, if they need to do it on their own. And then you set them up for success the way that they envision it.
Okay. So you might give her an out and let her do the training on her own. Okay. Any other approach?
I guess I'd try to identify at this point, how motivated they are, and genuinely from a work standpoint to see how much time they do have on hand versus not have. And then depending on what both those situations are, I then either let them take the class or the training during work hours, saying that I understand that you're really busy, but find time and just concentrate on that if I feel like they need what I really want them to do to the next level. I think I would just let them take it during work. And be like, that's okay to concentrate on after, but
So delay.
No, to do it in time during work hours.
Okay.
So allocating, let's say, a
So
half
give them
hour
time
each
during the
day, right, to work on that.
Okay. So self-study during the day in place of the course. Okay. This is completely different than what I expected. You're letting her off the hook. Okay. How would you convince her to take the class? Let's try one of those approaches. Okay.
Maybe just stressing the fact that a lot of times you have to feel a little uncomfortable in order to push yourself to the next level and continue learning things.
Okay.
And maybe even relating, an experience that you had that, to let them know, I've been there too, I get it, but you do have time, make the time, and it's important to do that.
Okay. So,
It's your computer.
So, I heard 2 beta programs in what you said. Can you name the 2?
Not without them in front of me, I'm
Okay.
trying to think, but they
So you
were.
got fortunate way, you got external, internal, you got sorting by self-rows, mismatcher, convincer, possibility versus necessity, and independent cooperative proximity.
Maybe matcher, bringing in, talking about an experience that you had, and saying that you understand where they're coming from.
So that's, okay, so there's There's a third. I also heard convince her, right? So you gave reasons, you tried to convince her, right? And much of these kind of conversations does involve the convincer strategy, right? Because you're trying to make arguments, right? And then you outlined some possibilities, right? What could happen, like where her career would go. Right? So there's kind of three. So you see, it's not, it's not all one. Sometimes you can combine a few different approaches. Any others? Got one more? Take a stab at this?
I think you could use the shorter way. It seems like she's talking about a lot of the negatives, and you can say you're kind of avoiding, like if you do this training and I'll save you all this time, you avoid all this work, whatever else. Hold that a bit.
Okay. All right, good. So that's the first example. Last one. Okay, you have an employee who would like to attend a training class. Okay, you believe it's in your team's best interest to pursue a new analytic approach to solve a problem that keeps occurring. Since you haven't used it before, your team is resistant, offering excuses as to why this new approach won't work, and why it is best to stick with the usual approach. Think about the meta programs and how you might convince them to try your idea. What would you do here?
Think of all the
Make
time you could
assumptions.
save.
What's that?
Think of all the time you could save.
Right? So what's that? What?
Possibility,
So possibility.
Towards.
Yes, possibility.
a little bit of towards.
Towards.
I would just keep saying that and make a convincer strategy.
Okay. Okay. Good. Anything else?
I think in possibility, like, why not try this analytical approach to see what comes out of it? If it doesn't work, you don't have to use it.
So try it.
There might be some new opportunities or, problems that you resolve with this new approach.
Okay. So what technique do you think that is?
I was thinking of, like, possibility.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motivated myself or others, like, what frame of reference? I'm forgetting, external, yeah.
External, internal.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the benefit for the team, how the team will look within the organization.
Yeah, so you can try that approach. Yeah. Okay. One more, and then we're going to rate.
If there's a superstar kind of guy on the team, kind of put him in charge. And why don't you figure out the best way and then come
that's
back to the
interesting.
team and lead us.
Okay. A little bit of the development opportunity for the high flyer. Okay. So what's that? What style does that entail?
Independent, cooperative, I guess. Take an independent guy and
Okay.
put him into a cooperative setting.
Okay. Anything else? All right. So all right, breakouts. We have. Wait, this is going to be a little challenging.
Do we want to take a survey of how many we have in each group now with the numbers? Like
So-
ones?
How many ones? One. There you go. One. How many twos? Four. They're all together. Look at that. Okay. So is it four of you?
Do you want, if it's okay, we could like have you guys get up and so then we can see and then we can show you where to go. Would that work? Because then we can move them
You know
around.
what? Let's just do this. You think you guys could handle breaking it into groups of four on your own without using the numbers? This isn't even painful.
Do you want people you don't know in the groups?
It would be best if you don't. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 4 or 5?
So 4. The even, is that better for groups?
5.
2 and 2.
Do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3,
Just kind of.
4, 5. Did I get you guys?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. No, yeah.
Oh, on 5?
5.
Okay.
So that's 5 groups. Of 5. That's good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right.
Did you get that right?
Group number 1, stay right here in the room. So group number 1 stays in the room. Group number 2 is a round table out this door. Big round table. Group number 2 is the big round table. Okay? Group number 3 will find a round table right here. Out this door, out this class. Okay? Group number 4 takes the next round table. Group number 5